7A in the town of Schroeppel on the 15th day of November 1995 at 7:15 p.m. To consider the said petition and to hear all persons interested in the subject thereof concerning the same and for such other action on the part of the town board with relation to such petition as may be required by law.
Okay, the public hearing is open, and there any public comment at this time concerning the water and sewer district proposal on Route 57?
It's just water right now, right?
Just water.
Okay,
Just water.
just water.
During the county, the only comment I had, I spoke to the, they didn't include Lenny. If Lenny wants water, he's in Schroeppel, so he's on our water line.
Lenny?
Carvel.
Oh,
He's in the town of Schroeppel, he's next to Mr. Ridgway there.
is that true, Leo, that he was not?
Well, you don't even know. You don't know.
He's on our water line, yes.
Information, the properties we have included within the yellow boundary are those people that responded to the petition with the town. My understanding is the parcel of property we're talking about was recently subdivided or created from the parcel that was annexed into the village.
Right.
So it's and this happened within the last couple months. So it's really been after the petition, I guess, was circulated. If that parcel or that property owner wishes to be included, my understanding would be a couple ways to do it. You could redo the district, re-advertise, or consider an agreement from the property owner that he agrees to pay all costs equal to the people in the district, and at some point amend the district boundary. Legal counsel may.
Well, yeah, I think the cleanest way to do it is if we're going to include people to do it from the start. I would think that if someone else wanted to agree to contribute to the cost but not be part of the district, they would almost legally have to form their own district.
You could do,
But-
act
but-
as a third option, really.
But it's cleaner to do it all from the beginning, and I think, we'd had an informational hearing on where to go with this, and this is, I guess we decided to go ahead as it was originally planned.
So, if this individual wants to get in to the district, you're saying he won't be able to do so at this time?
He could if we amend this, certainly, anybody could.
But what does the amendment mean, and we're going to have to do? To go through this whole process again?
Yes, it would have to be republished in another hearing.
Leo, how long ago did you initially draw this up?
I believe this is in August. Matter of fact, it was revised last in April.
No, I mean initially.
Initially, it's been probably 3 years.
Okay, thanks.
I think the village was not even aware of Lenny being on the line until you brought it to my attention, right, Mac? And I went down there, and they hadn't even billed him prior to that. And so I just don't know, what's the, do we, does, he would be the next door there, right there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
David, if this were to pass as it is, could we at a later time add someone to the district?
I think you could, but it would almost be done as forming a new one.
Separate?
Yeah.
It'd have to be put.
I know, for him,
Well,
we'd have to go back through the whole steps for him?
I think he could either form his own and contract directly with he could contract with the town and the village himself, or he could contract with this district, or you could form another one that also includes him. But if you're going to do that, it makes sense to do it now.
Mac?
Like everybody that's in that yellow zone there now, if this is passed, they automatically go on the water line, right?
Right.
This is something he wants to be added?
Does he want to be added, Mac?
Well, he's on our water line. He will have no water unless we have a wet season.
Why is he here?
Yeah,
He's
I'm not
possibly out of town. but-
No.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure that we can do it without him giving us some input.
But if he can, I don't care, you know.
Leo, how much would it cost to redesign the district to add that piece of property? And what happens if he comes in next month and says he doesn't want it?
Well, what happens if you do that and the next guy down or somebody else comes in and says, no, I want to be on it? I mean, it's got to come a time when you say, this is it, this is going to be our district.
The only thing that bothers me,
because he's already on the line.
Well, okay. Is there
Okay.
anybody else
Well,
like that?
he's on the line because the people that already have it allowed him to hook up. Is that right, Mac?
Right.
So he's only there by their good graces at this point in time. That's why the village was not even aware of it. When I went down and approached them, and Mac brought it to my attention, and I went to the village, and they had no knowledge
In other words, he hasn't been metered or anything. He's
at
just
that,
backing into
at that
somebody
point,
else's.
at that point in time, yes.
Leo, is this one of the areas that we are laying all new piping through?
Yes, sir. My recommendation, that since this district has taken so long
Yes.
to get to this point, is for the public hearing to continue. The board makes a decision after the hearing's been closed. That property owner be advised that if he wants water, to make a request to the town. And if this district proceeds and he wants water, even if he forms another district, it can probably end up finishing at the same time. So that he would not necessarily lose out
He could petition the town himself to become part of
to
the
be
district.
in a water district, the same process.
Yeah.
Even if you included one property in one little small district, it's not, it's a little bit of paperwork at the town level, but there are ways you can consolidate at some point.
Does that mean a continuation of the constant paperwork for one lot? In other words, it'll always be, that district will have its own billing, its own,
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes.
Well, yeah, but they're gonna get the bill anyways on a separate basis. Doesn't make any difference. You're talking about once it's set up, the computer does it.
Right.
We're not talking about, we're talking about input.
a few more lines on a page and that's it. Other than that, a
Yeah, we
continuous.
spent over 3 years, and we're not talking if we add this district, monumental engineering costs here,
No,
as I gather. You know, if you wanna drag something out another 3 months after 3 years, I guess you can do that, but have another public hearing on the new one, I think we best proceed as Leo has suggested.
Well, and I think we have to without the owner being here.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
we
right.
can't
even
assume.
if he sent a letter or something to.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Leo's suggestion. We send a letter to him and that he could start the procedure on his own. And
Under no circumstances should we get in a situation where he might be cut off from water, but I think at the same token, I think we should proceed with what we have here.
If we had, of course, this is the public hearing, we don't have to vote on it tonight. If we voted, if this gentleman came in with a written letter, some statement that he wanted to join this district, you're saying, and Leo, you're saying that, then the whole thing would have to be re-engineered? No? Then what if, we're having our public hearing now, and we're having input. We don't have to vote on it tonight, but by the next meeting, if he came in and gave us a letter that he wanted to join, would it be just a matter of including it?
no,
no.
you gotta go through the
You
whole
have to-
process.
You have to go back and re-advertise
Okay,
the district and a public
Right,
hearing
that's
because
it.
the district is different.
okay. that's-
So that he might better do this all by himself. Come in and
Right. We
petition the
won't hold
board,
anything else up in-
petition the board.
That's
So
just going to
every
be
month
it.
we waste is another month of increased inflationary costs and everything else, and it's been 3 years now, as far as.
Got it cleared up.
It's already done, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
So isn't that was already done before?
Yeah, right, so.
That's the whole reason we had to do this, I understand.
Okay, so that the sewer is gonna be contingent upon the water district?
The sewer already exists.
Okay.
but I think it was contingent.
Any more comments from the public concerning this? Then we'll send a letter to Mr. Carvel informing him that if he wants to become part of the district, then that he should petition the board as an individual.
Are you asking me to do that?
Yes, the clerk should come from the clerk's office, that's her job.
Any more comments from the board?
Move we close the
Pretty
hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Carried.
only have one bid, if you wanted to do that.
Is it gonna be open before?
So then both of these projects can go forward then?
Well, we have to make some resolution about it. And again, there has to be some specific findings.
Town Board of the Town of Schroeppel will receive sealed bids on the following until 4 p.m. on November 15, 1995, at the Town Clerk's Office, County Route 57A, Schroeppel, New York. 1 tractor mower. Said item is available for inspection at the Town of Schroeppel Highway Barn, Route 57A. The Town Board of the Town of Schroeppel reserves the right to reject any and all bids.
Okay, this time I've opened a bid from Tracy Road Equipment. Subject two-wheel drive tractor with cab and boom mower with rotary head. 1995 Ford 6640 SL tractor with 450 hours. This tractor meets or exceeds the specifications required. Bid price was $47,131. Trade allowance for Austin Western grader, a Thay belt loader, and a V-plow of $9,000, making the total price FOB Schroeppel, New York, $38,131. That's all right. Open the pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to continue the regular meeting with public concerns. Yes, Sue?
A few things. One, did you make any more decision about the chemical pond funds?
I have not heard back from the state DEC as
She
to,
wanted the microphone, please.
oh, Marie would like you to have the microphone.
What, in terms of whether it's a private pond, is that?
Or not only that factor, but what they're suggesting or recommending be done and the cost factor involved.
I'm sorry, I guess I lost it. The DEC supposed to recommend something we should do with the pond?
He was going to do a study of the pond itself and come back with recommendations what he would suggest to do to it and the cost factor involved. And as of Mr. Rima at this point in time has not gotten back to me.
I think one of the things that he did tell us was that he had to have legal look at it first.
Well,
Until he had a legal opinion as to the status of what the town can do, then or the state or the county, he has to have a legal opinion, and he was going to get that before he proceeds with anything else.
Okay, what was the gentleman's name?
Mr. Rima, R-I-M-A.
And he's down at the DEC office now?
Yes, he's in the chemical or the end of it. I have his number in my office, if you want to call it.
The other thing I was just wondering, I had put a request for some of the secret documents that were, that you folks passed 2 weeks ago. Are those available yet?
I think your question will be further answered as we get into the meeting.
Okay, so you don't know when they will be available, or is that going to be discussed?
Discuss.
Years ago, somebody asked me, and I didn't know the answer to this question. There was a referendum on the recent ballot about term limits,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand that was passed like 2-1.
It's on the agenda for later.
Pardon?
It's on the agenda for later.
Okay, so that's something you would have to go and pass if you're going to do it.
It's on the agenda. We'll discuss it.
And the other thing I'd like to bring up is that there had been some concern about some fill that's being brought in various parts of the town. I know particularly there are some questions about some fill out near the corner of Highway 10 and 12. And people had some concerns about the contents of that fill. And checking with the DEC and looking at the state requirements, they're incredibly absurd. I mean, according to DEC, quote unquote, that's legal fill, but in order to be legal fill here, under DEC regulations, it just has to basically appear clean. In other words, if it doesn't have any like water stains on it, and it doesn't smell bad, it's considered clean, quote unquote, legally. Now, that's kind of ridiculous. I think maybe we'd all probably agree to that. I mean, there could be any one of a ton of chemicals and contaminants in any of these things that don't produce water stains and that don't smell. So in essence, the state rules and regulations aren't really taking care of us in that regard. And what I would like to request, and it's probably got a snowball's chance in a hot place, but considering the known Superfund sites here in this area, I mean, not necessarily not in the town of Schroeppel, but in the neighboring areas, and considering the old munitions dumps and landfills and all this other kind of stuff, and the potential for a certain number of contaminants, I would like to request the board to consider having some sort of ordinance, town ordinance, local ordinance regarding regarding fill materials that can be brought into this town. And not so much in making specifications, because I realize what that would entail in terms of testing and all that other kind of stuff, but even at least if we could require that anyone who brought any kind of fill materials into this town, from anywhere outside of this town, would at least be required to fill in or sort of register these materials in the town hall, and with something as simple as, for instance, where did the material come from? And some sort of documentation as to the location and any known history or whatever, so that basically we have a history of this. I mean, the town could. It's so easy to bring in fill materials from other places over a short period of time, and then just dump a bunch of dirt and grass over them. And God only knows, what we're filling up the town of Schroeppel with. So we could be starting with a fairly clean town and wind up with refuse from God knows where. So that at least, as I said, I can understand, you can't say, oh, you're going to have to, everyone who brings fill in is going to have to test it or have it tested or certified, et cetera. I mean, I realize that that's kind of off the wall, but at least that anyone who brings in fill from any place outside of town, would be required, in essence, perhaps to have something like a permit, but in a very simple sense. The permit might even be something in the form of registration. And I would really ask the town board to please consider this. Because as I said, there's all sorts of things that can be brought in and dumped here. And we still get our water supply from here. And so does the village of Phoenix. And there are so many areas around municipal wellheads and even potential future wellheads and even private wellheads that are impacted by what goes into this ground. So I would just ask the town board if they would consider doing that, and ask Mr. Hawthorne, do you see just legally any problem with that? I mean, if they decided that they would want to consider that, would that be something the town could do?
To be honest with you, you lost me on time about, if you're asking for a legal opinion right now. I don't really understand what it is you're asking.
Asking if the town would consider having a requirement that anyone who brought in fill from outside the borders of the town to be deposited inside the town, would be required to register some sort of information about, where that fill came from.
I mean, I could certainly research this if the board asked me to, but off the top of my head, I think that as long as you're not in violation of the zoning laws, I'm not sure the town has a right to do that.
DEC laws.
And DEC laws, I mean, if there's a problem with pollutants and somebody knows that and reports it, that's how the system works. I don't think you can do it backwards and regulate everything that comes into the town that way.
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about regulating it, I'm
I think
talking
you
about.
are. Isn't that what a permit system means?
No, well, all right, I'll retract, we won't call it a permit or a license thing, we'll just call it well, what could you call it, I don't know. Registration, filing, something like that. I mean, I'm not saying that it be used, I'm not saying it necessarily be used to prevent people from bringing stuff in, but it's simply that we, because as I said, if you look at the state requirements regarding fill,
Yeah, if you're not saying you're trying to regulate it, so what if they tell you some horror story as to where it comes from? What authority do we have to do anything about it?
Well, if it's a pollutant, we do have authority. I think
DEC has regulation.
we're the only place that you could probably, or you might have some grounds to stand on is if that were area were considered environmentally sensitive. For example, if it turned out to be a overlay district, then you'd probably
Well-
have the right to control what goes in and comes out. Although I do think there's, to my knowledge, there was something that was brought up, and this has to do with problems that neighbors and I faced a lot of years ago when we went to court. But I was under the impression that they could not bring materials in from outside the county of Oswego without special permits of some type.
I'm not aware of that, but it may be true. If it is, I presume it'd be a county ordinance prohibit that, but the board would like, I'd certainly check into it.
That doesn't seem like, for the way you're saying it, Dave, if somebody wanted to order some gravel from the pit just across the line
They have
from you,
to be
they have
registered
to-
with the.
they can't come across the line and
No, they can if as long as they know the trafficking is there. But for example, what happened in our particular area is that they farmed out all the topsoil into Onondaga County, and that's actually a violation because people who did it were not registered, did not register with the proper authorities. You can do it as long as you.
there's, in other words, what you're saying is regulation in
Well,
terms
that's
of
why-
selling
that's where I think the
aggregate
DEC
back and
permits
forth
come
across
in.
the county line.
Yeah, I believe there is.
Well, we could look into it. I've never heard of such thing,
Okay.
but the material, I go by
Yeah.
there 4 or 5 times a day, or if not more, is bricks and dirt. And I didn't see, and I watched carefully if there was anything that involved what I would think of as hazardous material, would be tar or anything like that. And it was apparently a building that was knocked down, and it's still exposed. There's been some dirt laid over the top, but the bank is exposed.
No
and
asbestos.
I didn't see any asbestos. Did you see asbestos there?
Well,
And I don't know where
Well,
it came from, though.
Bill, before he retired, was out there checking it out, so he didn't come back.
But it was bricks and dirt is what it was, and it's still exposed, and anyone can go examine it and see
So,
it.
okay,
See,
look at,
as I said, but it's not necessarily exactly what the material is, it's
Well,
concrete, it
well,
also depends on where it's from.
the attorney will look into it. Any other requests that you have or concerns at this time?
No, that's about it.
Okay. Any other public concerns? If not, then I would ask for budget modification request in town clerk's account 6832, central printing and mailing $850, historian $10, for a contingency account of $928.32, miscellaneous $32, bridges $32, transferring from those two accounts and the engineering contingency to pay two of the bills for CNS engineering.
I'll move on the budget transfer.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Have we still gotten rid of, what's the status of the hundreds of stamped envelopes?
There are no longer any envelopes that are stamped. That's why the request is being made.
There's none of the old denomination?
Not to my knowledge, that's why they're making the request.
They went through the 3,000 or so that we had?
Well, I don't know whether it's 3,000 or what, but the request is being made here by two different departments. They add the money to the central printing and mailing. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Okay, with that, I would ask for approval of the vouchers to pay the general 654 to 691 in the amount of $120,427, and highway 527 to 5287 in the amount of $9,535.10.
So moved.
We're all signed.
Second?
Okay, I'll sign.
Any discussion?
You're signing, okay.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried.
It's 3 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay, I'd ask this time to have a motion that we approve the Pennville fire contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? The amount of that contract would be for $112,270 for the approximately 243 assessment for the Pennville Fire District. Any further discussion? Do I have a second on that? Okay.
Got Hanford, yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Carried. We had a request from the election workers to have an increase in wage to $7. Do we have a motion to give them a raise or not to give them a raise?
So moved.
What are we going to move on? What are we?
The $1 an hour increase to $6.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah.
That
okay.
was what we decided.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, motion's been made, second, to raise it from $5 to $6 an hour. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Carried. I'd like to request a motion that we pass the proposed budget for 1996, which would be for the townwide assessment, 246, and for part-town assessment, 129, making an overall assessment of 375, which is the same assessment as last year.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I want to know why all of a sudden they dug up an additional 11,000 to even out the taxes to the previous year.
Well-
I mean, it's real convenient. I mean, all of a sudden that we had a slight decrease in all of
It wasn't all of a sudden, it was an oversight, and it was pointed out by our auditor that we had. It was there, it was on our list of papers, it was listed there, so it was an oversight by the budget officer and myself in not putting it in there. When we sent the budget back down for the auditor to take a look at, he pointed that out to us. It's on that, one of those papers of the anticipated balances. So any further discussion? No further discussion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Term limits, sir, would you like to speak to that and what that referendum meant?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know what the final result was. I assume it passed.
Yes, it is.
Almost 2 to 1.
And all we need to do is I prepare within 20 days after the election, which gives us till the 26th. I have a certified copy of it, certified by the clerk, which I'll file with the necessary places, and then it becomes a law.
Okay, as soon as it's received by
The state
the State Department, it will become a law, and then so it will go into effect.
goes into effect, I believe we made it, I think we made it effective.
Okay, now, what goes into effect of the law, what was on the referendum, or what was in our,
Referendum is what goes into effect. What the people voted.
There's word on there, isn't it?
turn my phone over here.
Yeah, excuse me. According to the referendum, the purpose was to limit the town supervisor to 4 full terms or 8 years, and council persons to 2 full terms or 8 years, and the other aspects of the law, which were definitional,
Okay,
they all are part of it, yes, as passed.
okay. So that will be sent down on this. Okay.
That'd be a local law, right?
Yes. Should be local law number 2 for this year.
Right, so I have to file it now, right?
Right, and I'll send you instructions on that.
Okay. I'd like to ask what the board's pleasure is, on, or what they would like to do on the 57 Water District.
Move we proceed.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
Well, let me throw the law part in. You need to make a determination of the following. First of all, whether the petition was signed and acknowledged as required by law, whether all the property and property owners within the district are benefited thereby, whether all the property and property owners benefited are included within the limits, and whether it is in the public interest to grant the relief requested, which is formation of the district. So those findings need to specifically be made if you're going to go ahead with it.
What was the first one?
First one is whether the petition was signed and acknowledged as provided by law, which in my legal opinion, that was okay.
Okay.
The second was whether all the property and property owners within the proposed district are benefited by this district being formed.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Doesn't have to be majority.
Well, the finding has to be, all 4 of these have to be by resolution of the board found to be
Oh, okay.
correct, so I don't know how you want to, maybe somebody would want to word it, all 4 of them.
Wouldn't it be more advantageous then if we had a formal resolution drawn up, so, as opposed to trying to wing it? You know what I'm saying?
If that's the pleasure of the board, certainly.
Whereas.
I don't,
Dennis used to do those real well.
Can do that.
He's real big on those.
If you'd like to wait,
well, I don't want to wait any longer, to be honest, but I'm just wondering on, wouldn't it be to our advantage to make sure that we cover all our...
well, that's why I'm bringing this up, because a resolution is going to have to cite all 4 of these issues and state that a finding was made on them. And if the board says, let's go ahead on it, I'm not going to go draft a resolution saying you found this unless you found this.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
That's my whole
All right,
point.
okay, I misunderstood.
So you still can make this finding, and then I could draft the resolution
Okay,
after.
Okay.
all right, that's fine.
So the first one is to the petition being sufficient, that's not a problem. The second one, the property and the property owners being benefited thereby.
That's-
Yes.
Okay, the third one is whether all the property owners benefit are included within the limits.
No.
And I guess from the discussion tonight, that may not be the case, I don't know.
Get around
The
that.
same token.
Well, that's the same,
No,
that's the same token
Yeah.
too.
No, I mean,
Well, there are people that are beyond the limits there, the shopping plaza that wanted to be included too, that were not in,
Well, yeah, you could make the argument that to the southern part of, to the
Well,
southern line of the town.
I think you already made the argument, where do you stop, where do you start, where do
Exactly.
you stop? So-
And I don't think that that's necessarily what that's saying.
Yeah, but I think it's specifically, that particular question deals with the individual who benefits from it, because he's already on it. I mean, does he get shut off? And then, read the language again.
Whether all the property and property owners benefited are included within the limits of the proposed district.
See, he'll be benefiting from it unless we shut his water off, because he's getting water. He's not within the
I
district.
guess it's all semantic.
Well, yeah, and it's probably more designed so that you don't shut somebody out for political reasons. You know, where you make a district and gerrymander
To go
around.
around
Well,
it.
Yeah.
the thing is, he's gonna continue getting his water as is, but he won't be in his district until he forms a district. Then we can, he's gonna be getting his water, he's getting water now from the village, right?
Right.
No,
But
he's getting water because these private users have allowed them to hook onto their line.
Through the line,
This-
right.
But he'll be hooked into
There's
the district.
Nobody was aware of this even
Right.
occurring, actually,
So,
technically.
so he is there because these people said, yeah, you could hook onto our line.
So somebody
Well,
is
when they run the new line, he's
subcontracting
not gonna
water,
be on it.
basically. They're subcontracting. So the water's coming out of the district, going outside the district, period. Going from within the district to outside the district now. Am I clear on that?
There's no district yet.
Well, when we form it.
On a
could
technical
be.
basis, the individual who allowed him to tap into the line that wasn't appropriate.
We understand it, but we have the problem now of answering
Right,
this
but I
question,
think
is what
this,
I'm trying to do.
I think this clause may be more designed for when you logically should have a line, water line go a straight line, and because you excluded somebody from the district, it actually has to go around their property to get to the other side. And I think that's what that's trying to address, to prevent you from
All right,
doing
As
that.
long as you
Okay,
feel
that's
that we're
okay.
within
So
safe.
it's okay.
I think so. And then the last one is whether it is in the public interest to grant the relief requested, which is the formation of the district.
Yeah,
Yes.
3 years ago.
Okay, so I can put that in the form of a resolution,
Yes.
Okay.
and those are the findings that the board has made then,
Mhm.
and somebody ought to move on it.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, do we want to accept the bid for the tractor from Tracy Road Equipment?
That's the mower that we began looking at last spring,
Yes,
and falls within the dollar parameters that we had,
this will go on here, yeah.
right,
So moved.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Historic preservation update.
Well, yeah, I made 4 extra copies. I know Dean would probably like one, and whoever
Ian's
else.
here,
Indeed, is here.
Barb Dix is here, and Kathy Pike.
What I did is pursuant to the board's instructions, I had these language added regarding the voluntariness, and I have a cover letter with all of those explaining exactly which changes were made. There were 2 changes regarding that, and 1 change regarding the number of people on the commission. And then at the end of that letter, I do state a concern I have at this time.
That sounds good.
They added it to it. This is off the end.
Which one you want?
Yes.
Wait a
Public
minute,
hearings
wait
last
a
week, we
minute.
had 45 days to
One
act.
page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually
It was,
concur with.
she said it was going, you sent it up to her while I was here.
Yeah, they stapled
He's
it
got
to.
apprehensions, I would rather have those covered.
Yeah, I
It's better
think,
to err in the,
Well, I would state the CLG contract that was signed by the state had that additional language in it, and they didn't say anything, but Dean has pointed out to me by sending me a copy of,
This one here?
I haven't
No, this one.
seen that yet, but maybe that's from the same thing. Apparently from the procedures for the certified local government in New York State, which apparently is, I would deem these to be regulations, I think, passed by the state. There are some clauses in there where they talk about designation subject to owner's consent and how that might be a problem, so I think before we go further, we definitely want that addressed by the state.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, then we agree that we'll table this until the attorney has a chance to look at it? Okay. Okay. Comprehensive plan.
Okay, similarly to what we just did with the water district, there are specific findings required for the negative deck, which was done on the comprehensive plan last time, and those weren't done on the record by the board, and I have to take the blame for not pointing that out at the time, but in trying to draft the resolution giving it a negative deck, I didn't feel it was my place to make those findings, and I bring it back to the board's attention tonight for the board to determine what it would like to do. Those specific findings are at best complicated, and I don't think it's something we can go through like we just did with that, and I'd like the opportunity to put it in writing and have everybody a chance to think about it. Would suggest that the prior resolution be rescinded.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I don't know, but I think this letter from Ed Marks that I just got my hands on tonight bears consideration and reconsideration for positive deck on it.
What's the date of the letter?
Yeah, I just,
No, just got it.
just got it in my
You
office.
didn't get a copy? Well, this is very similar to the one that I alluded to that I showed you
That he
last.
sent back in
last time
January.
we met,
Didn't-
that
didn't-
they- this is like
Doesn't,
a copy.
isn't Dave's office copied on that? Mine's in my office.
Does it say something about it?
Days on.
Yeah, Dennis, Dave,
Oh.
Should have been. Maybe it'll,
I thought you were off.
But this is not really late.
No.
This was just another copy of what they sent before, David, which is what I was trying to tell you about before.
Okay,
well, I'd like that opportunity, and then it's up to the board what to do, but I would suggest you rescind the prior one. Oh, you just did.
we just did. Okay,
So in essence, we're back to square one. There's been no declaration.
right, and we're gonna,
The only people that made the
we
motion
need to-
have to
Yeah,
be
we
the
need
one
to
who
call the
said-
question, please.
we did. All in favor
What?
of rescinding the motion of negative declaration until it's written out, or rescind the negative declaration vote. Last time, we had a motion made and seconded.
Will we be reviewing and discussing this in light of that?
I think that's
Well,
what, yeah.
since the whole question comes up again, I should have.
Yeah.
Well, you'll all be explained to you in writing what findings have to be made to make a negative or positive deck, and in light of that, certainly you can bring it up for discussion when the resolution's made at the next.
Did you get a copy of this now?
No, but I will, I'm sure I
I
get
have
a
mine.
copy.
I have several.
Okay.
They've said the same thing over and over, so
Okay.
it's no big deal.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any more old business?
And the other one too?
I think, yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah,
zone
but-
change on Godfrey Road, we did a positive deck, and it's the same kind of situation, and, again, I hate to have to hold this up, but I think we need to do the same thing. Because for positive or negative, there are specific findings that have to be made by the board.
So moved. Rescind.
Second? You got a second? Any further discussion?
What are we
We're the
discussing?
positive declaration on,
Godfrey.
The Godfrey
we gotta
estate.
write up,
Godfrey
he's
Cross.
saying we have to write up specifics to the reasonings, and that's why,
I thought those were enumerated when we discussed what DEC's concerns were.
I think basically the resolution that was passed last time was a positive deck on that zone change request without any specific findings as are required.
We were basing that on just the letter DEC said.
but I don't think that the correct language was used as far as what specifically has to be said. Positive declaration must state that it has been prepared in accordance with Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law and contain the following: name and address of lead agency, which, that's not a problem. Name and telephone number of person who can provide further information, that's not a problem. Location of the action, that's not a problem. Brief description of the possible significant environmental effects that have been identified and the reasons supporting the determination. I don't think that that was sufficiently stated by the resolution as passed last time. What I'm trying to do is protect, in both these cases, protect from the process being overturned in the future for not being done right.
Okay.
You want to call the question again?
Yeah, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion to
I got it.
rescind?
Excuse me, Mr. Tisdale made the motion, but who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
To rescind the positive declaration for the zone change on the Godfrey property on 264. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any further old business for the board like to bring? Okay, we've had several requests to make a dog census. Does the board want to make a formal recommendation that we do take one and that we do provide a way of remunerating the individual or individuals taking the census?
Have we ever done these in the past, and does anybody have an idea of what it ended up costing?
Marie, could you speak to that?
You're going to yield a lot more than you're going to.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, these are the numbers that we should hear,
Yes,
though.
we have done a dog census before. The last person who did it was the gal on Baker Road. What was her name? Sorry? When and previous, maybe in the town clerk, I did the dog census.
What
We
was
got
going
50
right
cents a
then?
dog, and now I
How
get
did they get paid?
so much a dog.
Was there a number?
Gwen got $1 a dog.
$1 for finding a
Plus-
dog that wasn't?
Plus mileage. No, you go to every single house and you write down how many dogs, whether they have a license or not. When the person goes out to enumerate, they're just counting dogs. They don't ask if you have a license or anything. It's up to the dog control officer to follow through, then you compare a list.
And
But
you,
I can tell you there's a lot of people.
well, right.
that don't
And
have
talking,
dogs.
On licensing,
What's the percentage last time? Was that?
well, Marie, she gave a rough guesstimate, and we wanted to state to the board what you figure your guesstimate was.
Well, it was about half as much as what Butch thought. Now, I don't know whether he knows more than I know about it
No.
or
he probably
not.
sees
but-
a lot more.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people don't realize this, but once you buy the dog license, we immediately send the original to the state of New York and Albany. And a year from whenever you buy the dog license is when it's due again. Some people get confused, they think it goes January to December. But like if you buy your first dog license in March, because that's when your dog turns 6 months old, so a year from March, your license is due, and the notice comes from the state. But when the state notifies the town clerk and the dog control officer that X number of people are due, say, November, anyone who doesn't buy a license, I follow through and call these people on the telephone before I give the list to the dog warden to give them a chance to come in before they get a ticket. But the problem, if you don't have a dog census every once in a while, is there are a lot of people who have never bought that first license. Or they buy a dog license for one dog when they really have 4 dogs,
Right, so if we're enumerating at $1 a dog, and what's
plus mileage is what,
and
I believe.
what's the income to the town for every dog that's licensed?
For every dog that buys a license, the town gets $10 plus 53% of the $12.50 or $17.50. That's quite a lot of money per dog. And after February of '96, any dog that has not been spayed or neutered, the town won't get any more money, but the state will get $3 more. So the fee will be going from $17.50 up to $20.50. So if you know anyone who has a dog that doesn't have a license, if they buy it now before February, it's $3 less. They don't have to get a license.
So moved,
Then,
and $1 a dog.
okay, then
Plus
what,
mileage.
plus mileage, the motion's been made that we advertise for someone to, perform a dog census for the town at $1 a dog plus mileage.
I second that, and just a little bit more discussion, because we do have a motion and a second. Do you have numbers as to when we did the last census, as to after we counted the dogs, how many licenses were, in other words, if we had 10,000 dogs, did we have 5,000, 3,000, 2,000 licenses? What percentage of the dogs
Well, they never
were
finished,
licensed?
so I would say the answer is no. Gwen never got finished because she moved away.
Oh, all right, but, all right, and.
So
you-
no, we don't have that.
Okay, you did, was there, with what she did, was there
A
more dogs?
considerable,
A considerable number.
Yeah.
And,
And
the-
previous-
You gotta remember that they can find 12, you can count 12 licensed dogs. Basically, this is what you're saying. 10 plus, but we'll say, we'll just use the number 12. Approximately 12 licensed dogs, you find one
Right, I
unlicensed
understand.
one, you paid for.
You paid for the census, right? I understand that.
Just 10 dogs would be
And I don't,
$100.
and you know as well as I do, Emilio, where we live, there's.
There'd be a bunch of
probably
happy
very
deer.
low.
Okay.
And a lot of dogs in the village that aren't licensed.
Yeah, that's it.
Any-
And see, that's another thing that we didn't have before, as I recall, because we have just, in the last 3 years, begun doing the village.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Do you have a
That's what I
update?
noticed in the paper.
Update on the bonding for the dog kennel?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Putting that together to have the necessary signatures by the board and the town clerk tonight, and I talked to Rick Foltz, and he basically got into a discussion with me about all the bonding that the town is about to undertake and is trying to undertake, especially to pay the engineers, and I hate to keep holding that up, but he suggests that, first of all, he suggests that there are specific bond counsel out there, and I don't know, this is just for the town's information. He suggested that perhaps the town might want to consider looking into using a separate counsel for the bond part, someone who specializes in it. It's up to you, but I think we've been doing okay to get these things through. He also talked about perhaps with all the different bonding the town is about to do, there are ways of putting it all together, but specifically for the dog kennel, if we want to move it ahead, I'm going to need a resolution allowing, essentially, it's a resolution allowing the town supervisor to enter into a bond anticipation agreement for the dog kennel, which I believe the amount of bid was $39581, and also the engineer and legal fees with that.
There aren't a lot of things we can consolidate, but I don't know about anybody else. I don't know about anybody else, but I honestly think probably, I don't think we have to go out and hire another council to do this. We've got.
Just wanted you to know his
look back on,
suggestion, and
incident on Klein Road and a few other things, you end up paying a counselor to do absolutely nothing. I think I'm more than confident having David complete the bonding. I'm sure there's some place that we can consolidate, because we discussed it when we were talking about computerization.
Do we want to do that now? Why don't we, do we want
I
to
think
consolidate
we
everything
should go ahead with the,
separately?
I think we should go ahead with, I would rather see the bond separate for the
The
animal
kennel.
control area. And I'm gonna use that term from this point on, because that's what we're gonna have to move towards. That should be a separate budget consideration totally.
You make that in form of a motion that we proceed ahead with the bonding for the
For the kennel.
kennel,
animal control area.
legal and engineering fees to be included in the bond.
Yes. And that we have our town attorney process.
Engineering and what else included?
Legal. we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
On the dog kennel issue, Rick also talked about, and those who don't know, this is the gentleman when we deal with it on bank. He mentioned out of the blue that sometimes there are situations where towns have been able to, when they know bonding is about to occur, to pay for some work, construction, whatever it is they're bonding for, out of a separate fund. And I know that had been brought up here before, and I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think there may be not necessarily a legal impediment to it, but certainly when you're audited, I think they'd have a problem with it. I just wanted to be aware of that.
I believe if you look about 4 years ago, was Earl still there? Did we, wasn't that previously a special fund problem a long time ago? I agree with you. So there should be special funding.
Yeah, I mean, just, in a case like this, the person who got the bid has to be aware that it just has to wait till the bonding goes through.
Well,
This is all gone now.
they were hoping to get the foundation and get it up and be able to work on it, but,
Doesn't look like.
well, I don't know, the state is, I'd like to share from the Pride in Phoenix. The Pride in Phoenix is planning 2 upcoming events, a pie social on November 19th, 1995, in the Sweet Memorial Building from 1 to 4. This would involve hospitality tables by local churches and organizations that would provide pies for sale by the piece with coffee and hot chocolate or purchase of a whole pies. Proceeds will go to the Sweet Memorial Building and Restoration Fund. Tree lighting and arrival of Santa by fire truck for the children of the village of Phoenix and the town of Schroeppel. Pictures with Santa and small gifts for the children, basic painting, singing of Christmas carols, and general good time will be December 9th from 6:15 to whenever. Please support this effort to unite the village and town in combined get-together. Contact Kathy Lee or Jenny Oyer. Thank you sincerely, Jenny Oyer, Pride in Phoenix. And so you want to bring a pie for the 18th? Does anybody?
19th.
And that one.
It's this Sunday, this coming
Okay.
Sunday.
Anything the board would like to bring up?
There was a brief meeting held between, after our regular meeting, last meeting with the councilman and the attorney. Is there anything we should know?
Talking about duck hunting, weren't we?
Yeah.
Well, any town business.
I got my duck license the first time in 10 years. We had a good time talking about that.
Mr. Chesbro?
I'd like to ask about the executive session contract application.
Okay, we need an executive session for personnel anyway.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Yeah. Dick, we'll take you first.
So like 12, 20, whatever they.
You need me to have Pat make another one of these up so that you can sign it and send it down to county.
Why, have you written all of them out?
Well, this one here is my copy.
I got one of this now written.
Okay, and you've got all this information down here, broken down.
Yeah, I didn't put copies of mine.
Well, okay, that's okay.
Second?
No problem?
I'd like to call a regular meeting back to order. There are no decisions made in executive session.
Wait,
Well,
come on.
okay, you have a question?
Yeah, a couple questions. That negative declaration, was that filed with the commissioner, the DEC commissioner, or anything? It wasn't filed with?
That's why you didn't get a copy of it, because there's never one actually prepared, so.
Okay, and the last, when you had that, they had that time frame that's set up, isn't there supposed to be a specific time frame though? When, according to that time frame that Dennis had set up there, you know, that whole several pages?
That was me, and it's not, we're not violating any time limits by doing this. In fact, most of the time frame, as I showed in there, is within so many days you do this, or so many days.
Exactly.
But we're not violating any of that by doing this, no.
Okay, because it looks like it said within 20 days you had to make a secret declaration or something, and
But no, it's okay to do it this way.
okay, and I guess that communication,
You want to compare it to this one?
is that the only communication, have you guys had any other communications from county planning or something on this thing? Is that one that just showed up tonight, that's the only one you've got?
On this particular comprehensive plan, which is different than the ones that have been proposed and dumped in the past, that's the first I've heard from anybody.
So are we going to?
I'm sorry, what?
There was other before on this.
On the other comprehensive
On
plan?
the other,
Yeah, 'cause
On
this has been
one.
rewritten.
On this
No.
one.
since the EAF and this comprehensive plan were submitted to county and DC, I hadn't had any response until today when you guys said you got that.
Actually, the May 16th letter of 95
But that was-
reflects the initial concerns of this particular.
Right, but that was a different comprehensive plan. We
No,
essentially
it's
started
in
over.
essence the same. There's no substantive change in what you declared a negative declaration on, to the one that, in essence, nothing has changed from that. And
I'll look it up.
I think that's what
That-
Ed Marks was.
Are you gonna, at the next meeting, are you gonna do your declaration, are you gonna do your thing then, at the next meeting?
I presume so.
Well, it all depends on whether we have he's gonna send us a letter, right?
Yeah.
Telling us what we need and whether we have the information necessary to base a
decision.
decision on.
Are we all going to be able to see this?
Sure. You were invited last time. We were
I don't recall.
Oh, do you mean you're gonna have a meeting to work on your
If we
comprehensive plan to
may,
fix it
I
to
don't,
county?
I don't know where
I don't know
we're
what,
going,
I don't know what
because
he's,
it's the first
what
idea
he's
we
gonna,
were gonna do.
what he's gonna make a recommendation we need, I don't know.
Oh, you mean,
But
Well, Dennis is,
you'll be on over?
David's gonna sit down. Dennis, David. That's David. This is a good looking one.
I'm telling Dennis,
It's on tape, Dennis.
Dennis doesn't have time to look at that.
okay, we got it.
Now, can we
Your turn.
move we adjourn?
Second, all in favor?